All right, how you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, as you can see here, there's the video sidebar. Good interview here with Steve Fisher. He's the private investigator that was hired by the owner of the property that David's manager, Josh Marshall, was renting. And by the way, I want to note something here. 3 days ago, I did a short when TMZ released an article about private investigator hired by homeowner or the manager. We already knew it was Steve Fisher. We announced that. And then weeks ago, in September, very early in September, after the body was identified, we started coming up with motives. And we even did a whole show on possible overdoses because I really do think that's still the case. But even before that, we did one whole show on overdose. But even before that one, we did all the possible motives to hide the body in a trunk. And we have been very on point with this case. We have covered a lot, guys. If you really are following this, you really got to look at some of the older videos because we go beyond just covering the case, the updates, but we covered a lot of stuff, including the collapse of the parasocial norm. And what I mean by that is usually when people fell in love with a celebrity, it would usually be one-sided. But what happens if that celebrity or that influencer can contact the person back? It's an advanced level of grooming that has not been seen, before. It's being done now. And at the end of the day, David is a groomer. But there's some interesting facts that come out here that I think me and Russ would like to kind of go over with you guys. And one other thing, I'm okay with Steve Fisher, but since he's been more involved, it was 100% people love him. And now there's some skeptics with him too. So everything he says, mind you, you make your own opinions from that. But Russ, I'm looking forward to doing this one. We just did one on Emmanuel Harrow's case, and we're going back to back here. But I'm glad for you to join me in on round two, Russ. Thank you very much.
Oh, anytime, Anthony. It's a great pleasure to get here and to be with you and to be able to put out what we know about criminal mindsets. I don't think that there's anywhere on the internet that's as in tune or as empathetic, and I mean that in the sense of understanding what it is to be a criminal, as it is with you and I within these venues.
I like that, Russ. I agree. And guys, if you get a chance, please check out a couple other videos. We've been covering the A. Marie case, a very interesting case coming out of Cleveland, Ohio. But I want to just dive into this because I'm excited for this. This got some good updates that definitely shows progress going forward. I will say this. The updates aren't shocking. We kind of figured this, but this is more about confirmation. And guys, there's some videos that me and Russ have done. One with the Mark Sanchez case with Perry Toll, and then I've done a few here with this David case where how the media tries to paint their own narrative. We even talk about basically how the media shifts things, especially with the Mark Sanchez case. You see it here. And I think you guys would also find that interesting because I'm wondering how much do you believe actually is what you believe or you're being spoon-fed to believe it. Does that make sense for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to tell you, in some of these things, like the Mark Sanchez case, for instance, but also everything else, that you see on the internet, that you see at the movies, that you see on TV, it's all colored, by just kind of this panoply of, media interests that really just get in there and make sure that their side of it's told. I have a article that I think it's coming out within the next week on Corrections One that is about a movie called Roof Man. That's really all out in the front of what's going on with regards to new movies right now. And I think that you'll see that every bit of that is all stuff that's colored by what I call the predominant media cultists, and they're just really interested in only offering their viewpoint up. And it's a lot of, manipulation with regards to the things that you see and the way that you're told that, you should be, receptive towards accepting this viewpoint of people who are clearly criminals or antisocial personality types. And so, I can say that with 100% certainty.
Yeah. And okay, guys, so we're going to begin this forward. So I'll begin this moving forward. So let me play this video a little bit. And there's a part where he announces his sponsor. I'm going to fast forward through that.
There could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her. And it's scary, sadistic stuff.
Big news on the David Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. We now know who the private investigator is that was hired by the Hollywood Hills landlord for the home that David had been staying at, right by where the Tesla was found with Celeste's body inside. Well, we just sat down with this investigator himself, Steve Fisher, about what he has learned so far, what we can expect next. Let me tell you, it is shocking. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey, real quick, everybody, this is another law and crime legal alert. There are allegations right now claiming that online multi-billion
that's the commercial. Let me just fast forward.
just hooked into your loved one has struck.
I'm using this for fair use, guys. I want to.
All right. So you remember that we told you that the Hollywood Hills landlord, the property manager for that property that David, the singer, had been staying at, that property owner, that landlord had hired a private investigator to look into the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the teen found dismembered in David's abandoned Tesla that was nearby? Well, not only do we know who this private investigator is, but I just interviewed him. Yeah, you're going to see him on this episode. And I'm recording this introduction after
I want to mention something real quick. This video just came out today. I want to show you a short because as soon as I read the TMZ article, I posted this video October 14th. This is from my short. Hey guys, interesting break in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. Looks like the owner of the building in LA or the home that the manager was renting, David's manager, I think Josh Marshall, was renting. Well, it looks like the owner has hired a private investigator. And I'm wondering if the private investigator is SF Investigates, Stephen Fisher. I mean, it would make sense. I think the homeowner would be the most objective. So if he was to investigate something, that would make a lot of sense, right? I mean, the homeowner just wants to know what happened in his home. There's reports that something could have happened in his home and no one's given him any updates. He has reached out to LAPD and they have not given him any answers. So he hired his own investigator, his own PI. And remember, there was a video with SF Investigates where he was being interviewed by, I think it's Pop Crime TV or LA Mag maybe or something. And he mentioned that he can't talk too much about it because he has been hired as an investigator. So again, I was of course wondering who hired him because he was hired from David's side. That would be unique in what he's presenting. But turns out he could be, maybe he's the one that's hired by the manager of the building, the owner of the home. If that's the case, that would be pretty objective. Just want to know what happened to my home. Love your thoughts on this. And guys, I want to mention one more thing real quick. They're going to start talking about the overdosing because I really strongly believe that could have been what happened. And I really do believe it's the overdosing. But I would recommend a few of the videos that I've done here for the Celeste Rivas case. Because when eventually the narrative starts to shift, they start to blame her. They start to blame the family. So I've done a few videos on that. But I would like you guys to check out this one. There's one I did 3 weeks ago, September 26th, called Overdose or Panic Cover-Up. But even before that, I want to show you one more thing. September 24th, possible motives in the David Celeste case. What could have happened? That's September 24th. One of the motives we mentioned is overdose and the panic cover-up, because it was the only thing that made sense to us. So if you guys get a chance, please check out those. You should check out really those videos that are all connected, because they're not just updates, they're information gathering. I mean, there's just stuff that could be shared that could create a bigger impact. Okay, let me go ahead and get us all back in. Hold on one second, Russ. Okay, so all right, Russ, let me play that. Hold on one second. I just wanted to get that out.
I interviewed him, and let me just say, he reveals a lot, okay? A lot. Now, this may not provide all the answers, but I will tell you, if you are listening to what he has to say, you're starting to get a better picture of a lot of things, okay? So this PI himself, Steve Fisher, we'll play that interview in a minute. Now, quick refresher. So police raided this $3.64 million home, which David had reportedly been paying tens of thousands of dollars in rent. We know that Celeste's body was found in the trunk of his impounded Tesla back in September, that the Tesla was near this property. And to be clear, since then, there's been no suspects that have been named, no persons of interest, no arrests. David has canceled his tour. He's moved out of that mansion. He has transferred properties that he owned in Texas to his mother. The whole thing has been a lot of unanswered questions. And that is where this LA landlord, apologies if I'm mispronouncing the name here, Malden Truvanovich, stepped in. He wasn't content to sit back and just wait for the LAPD, so he brought in his own private investigator to start digging, to get some more answers. We've talked about that in a previous episode, but now...
Hey, Russ, real quick. It does make sense at this point for the owner of that building to get the private investigator, because he hasn't been given any answers, and I'm sure he wants to, you know, it's money for him. He wants to rent it out, but he needs to know what actually, to some extent, what can be released, what actually happened. So it does make sense for him to hire the investigator, correct?
Oh, yeah. It's hard to say what his exact motivation might be, but I think that, you know, he wants to probably do a couple of things. He wants to, you know, remove the stink, if you will, off of his property, with regards to, you know, what may or may not have happened there. And I think that also he wants to remove himself from any part of the case with regards to anything else that may have happened. I think that, you know, probably in his mind, he might think that he might be targeted. This is just down the road, and this is speculation. I want to make that clear. The things that that, you know, D4VD, however he puts his name there, might come up with regards to trying to explain things through his defense attorneys. And so I think that this is a cover his ass scenario. But I think that in this case, his ass probably really truly does need covering. If that makes sense to you, Anthony.
No, it actually does, Russ, because let me get myself back in. Hold on one second. It actually does, Russ, because here, let me remove this for a second. I got some reasons of why, if I was a homeowner, why would I want an investigator, especially after this, after what had happened? Also finding out that, I had the police, LAPD in my the home that I'm renting. So there's liability protection. Was the property connected to the crime? He'd want to clarify if anything about the property itself, its security, layout, or access could expose the owner to civil liability. And did tenants use the home for illegal activity? If so, the landlord would want to show they had no knowledge and no negligence. Then you got the property damage and evidence, condition of the rental home. I mean, you're talking about a home that's $20,000 a month to rent. I think it's a home that's somewhere between $4 to $5 million range. So was the home damaged, altered, or used in ways that violated the lease? And evidence preservation. He might be documenting whether investigators, tenants, or media have disturbed or damaged the property, and whether the house could later be part of a civil proceeding. And then you have the tenant verification, who really lived there. That's a question that people are trying to find out right now. Sure, you got the manager that rented it, but who was living there? So the homeowner might want clarity on whether Celeste and David were the actual tenants, subtenants, or if others had access. Was Celeste there? That's a question that Steve Fisher touches on today. an age misrepresentation issue because Celeste was presented as older. The homeowner could want to confirm that false information wasn't used in rental agreements. Narrative and media control. The case is high profile. So a PI working for the homeowner could be tracking media mentions that implicate the property, building a timeline that shows the owner had no involvement, and countering speculation that the house was complicit in the events. And the last thing is the financial insurance concerns, insurance coverage. If there's a lawsuit or claim, the owner needs facts to protect the properties, insurance or liability coverage, and the future rental value, documenting that the property was not at fault, helps preserve its marketability. So in short, Fisher isn't just investigating the crime, he's investigating how the crime intersects with the property, ensuring the owner isn't pulled into legal battles or financial issues. That makes sense to you, Russ?
Yeah, that's a whole other realm that we're getting into here. And so, that, people who own property where they have it as an investment perspective and that type of thing, they're going to want to, make sure that their property is not damaged in any way by that. Even if it's just by reputation, there's a potential for this to go wrong. And so they're going to want to get out there and do what I call getting out in front of it rather than behind it. And so I think that that's probably the primary motive in regard to this case, is to get out in front of it and make sure that, any negativity, any negative stigma, any negative stink, if you will, is not attached to it.
Yeah, and I want to mention something, guys. This is where you can see some conflict with the private investigator as we speak. He's not working for any law enforcement agency. He's working for the person who owns the home. So technically, the information that he gets really should only go between him, unless he's got to share with LAPD. That's a different ball game. But between him and the homeowner, when it comes to him sharing the media, hopefully the homeowner is allowing that. And then also the police, LAPD, because it is an active investigation, that evidence still has to be turned over. So technically the primary owner really would be LAPD. But I just want to make sure, because right now there's a lot of conflict with Steve Fisher. Steve Fisher is not working for a law enforcement authority. He's working for the homeowner. So let me just rephrase this. Technically, he works for the homeowner, but if he finds things, he does have to give it to the police. So he has to be very careful as to what he shares, because the stuff that he finds, he's really not in any position at all to share any of it. And I think that's what we have to be concerned about. Okay, so hold on. Let me play some more.
Now we actually know who that investigator is, Steve Fisher. I'm going to play you that interview. It is something. But let me just say real quick, pin down exactly what this case is about. This all started on September 8th when LAPD officers were called to a tow yard on Mansfield Avenue in Hollywood after workers noticed this foul odor coming from a Tesla that had been sitting there. That car was registered to 20-year-old singer David, real name David Anthony Burke, the Houston-born artist behind the hit Romantic Homicide. That Tesla had been abandoned near the Hollywood Hills rental property, towed away, and was just sitting there. And when officers opened the front trunk, they found something horrific. Human remains wrapped in plastic. And a few days later, it was confirmed that that body belonged to 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a teen runaway who had been missing from Lake Elsinore since April of 2024. Her remains were decomposed, suggesting that she had been in that car for weeks. The cause of death is still officially deferred. Now, while David is not being considered at this point officially as a suspect or even a person of interest, the internet started connecting the dots, or seemingly connecting alleged dots, between David and Celeste. Screenshots from Discord chats, live stream clips, old photos started circulating, all suggesting that they had been in contact. Maybe they were even in some kind of relationship. TMZ had reported those that were close to David thought that Celeste was 19 years old, that maybe there was a relationship going on. And fans have pointed out that both she and David had that same small tattoo on their fingers. And if that wasn't eerie enough, David has this unreleased song with Celeste in the title. That's been reported. Everything has unraveled for David since the discovery. There's been a canceled tour date, pause on promotions for his upcoming album, drop brand deals. And while all of this is happening, David has been making some major legal and financial moves. He's retained Blair Burke, the powerhouse Hollywood defense attorney who's represented people like Harvey Weinstein. David transferred the deeds to 2 Texas properties to his mother right after one of those houses was apparently swatted, this false reporting of a shooting and a dead body there. But now let's get to it. Okay, let's circle back to that Hollywood Hills rental property, how a private investigator, a PI, even got involved in this case. So according to LA Magazine, police had executed a search warrant on that property back on September 17th. So since David had been renting it for reportedly about $20,000 a month, a home that was owned by a man named Alden Trifonich. And officers reportedly collected electronics, computers. They searched the drains for traces of blood or tissue. At least that's the reporting from TMZ. Can't officially confirm that. But this homeowner had said that after he'd heard almost nothing from the LAPD about what they found, he was frustrated. And that is when he made his move and hired his own PI. He told TMZ and the Daily Mail that his family wanted answers about what might have happened in or around this home, and that he wasn't trying to interfere with the police investigation. He just didn't want to be left in the dark about what connections, if any, his property could have to all.
I want to mention something real quick. Let's get us. There you go. So I want to mention something real quick. So when I talked about him being the private investigator and him working for the homeowner, and then you got the LAPD who still has an active investigation, I want to explain how, just in more detail a bit, how the relationship works. So, so who owns the information that Steve Fisher uncovers? So a homeowner does first, since Fisher is hired by the property owner. Everything he uncovers belongs to them. He cannot independently own it or release it. But active case rules apply. Because Celeste's death is an active homicide investigation, a homeowner, and by extension, Fisher, can't just sit on potentially critical evidence without risk of obstruction. So to the homeowner, Fisher gives his findings directly to the client who hired him. The LAPD, if the findings touch on the case, like who moved the Tesla, timelines, or tenant activity, the homeowner is expected or legally compelled to forward that information to law enforcement. The legal compulsion, even if the homeowner doesn't volunteer it, LAPD can subpoena Fisher or the homeowner for reports, photos, or testimony. Why does this matter? Because it's confidential, but it's not absolute. PI client confidentiality is strong, but it does not override a homicide investigation. The risk of obstruction, if Fisher or the homeowner withholds something material, they could face legal consequences and the balance of interest. The homeowner wants to protect themselves, but they cannot obstruct justice in the process. So the chain is Fisher, homeowner, LAPD by choice or by force. In a case this serious, LAPD will almost certainly demand access to whatever Fisher has. Okay, I just wanted to get that out there. Okay, let me put it back. Sorry about that, Russ.
This. And TMZ reports that the LAPD has since seized surveillance footage from the same home, cameras that could show exactly who entered or exited the property. Now, this homeowner reportedly told the outlet that he hasn't even seen the footage himself out of respect for his tenant's privacy. He also claims the police still haven't given him a copy of the warrant or told him exactly what they took. So the big question now is what exactly happened in or around that home, right? And whether the private investigator hired by this landlord, this property owner, has found anything that could shed light on that timeline. And that is where we're heading next, okay? Just one more thing before we get to him, something that we've learned. LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman spoke out, confirmed the case is still under investigation. No case has been presented to his office yet. We're going to get into that a little bit. But now I want to bring on our special guest. I'm joined by private investigator Steve Fisher, who is hired by David's former landlord. Really appreciate you taking the time here to talk.
Sorry, guys. I got one more part here, Russ. Love to get your thoughts on this. So I wanted to talk about something. So remember, if Steve Fisher or if they find surveillance, it goes to let's say the homeowner, but the homeowner will say, hold on, I sneeze. Sorry, guys. Homeowner will say, I didn't look at it, of course, but we also have a continuity of evidence here. So this is where things get legally tricky. If Steve Fisher, as a private investigator hired by a homeowner, because if I was a lawyer for David and there's new evidence that pops up, that does come from this investigation that Steve Fisher's doing, because there's a concern here because it's not directly involved with an LAPD investigation. Then all of a sudden you may have this continuity of evidence, or more so the continuity of evidence, or maybe a due process concern. So if Steve Fisher, as a private investigator hired by the homeowner, turns over surveillance footage, for example, or any evidence to LAPD, then yes, chain of custody could absolutely be challenged here. Here's why. Chain of custody basics. For evidence to hold up in court, prosecutors need to show a clean, documented trail of who had the evidence from the moment it was collected until it's presented in court. If that trail is broken, defense attorneys can argue the evidence was tampered with, altered, or even fabricated. So here's Stephen Fisher's position. Fisher's not law enforcement. He's a third party with loyalty to the homeowner. If he collects surveillance footage or physical evidence, then hands it over to LAPD, there's a gap in the chain. Who first accessed the footage? Was it copied, edited, or stored securely? Did Fisher alter or comment on it before handing it off? Defense attorneys could seize on that, arguing the evidence is tainted or inadmissible. So how LAPD can cover themselves? Ideally, LAPD would want to recover evidence directly, so through a warrant, subpoena, or owner consent, rather than through Fisher. If Fisher already has it, LAPD would need to document the exact circumstances of the handoff and likely subpoena the original source, like the security company or homeowner system, to establish an unbroken chain. Bottom line is, yes, chain of custody concerns are very real here. Anything Fisher touches is automatically more vulnerable to challenge than evidence collected directly by LAPD. So having him involved could also be a problem, Fisher. Make sure, I'm sure you're aware, but just be wary. And that's why private investigators are usually used to build parallel knowledge or leads, not to physically handle potential criminal evidence. So this could actually become a defense argument later. Critical evidence was first in the hands of a PI working for the landlord, not law enforcement. How can we trust it wasn't influence? You think that could be a concern, Russ?
Yeah, it can be a concern. I think that one thing that defense attorneys are exceptional at is muddying the waters. And so when you're muddying waters and you're just trying to, find any reason to try and put a filing in front of the court, what tends to happen is they want that to happen. They want to be a question mark. They want the question mark to go from a question mark to being a question of concern with regards to something that might happen at the appellate level. And that's what kind of like gets every single jurist, and by jurist I mean the judge, up in arms about it. The bad thing for them is if they throw up too many things like that, it can still come in discovery, and it can still come in ways that they're not prepared for, like inevitable discovery, which means that because we knew about this, we would have eventually got to that anyway. And so just because a judge blocks it doesn't mean that it's not going to make it in. And so,
but if there's but Russ, if there's still, if let's say the PI finds things and hands it over, shouldn't that at that point motivate LAPD to say, hold on, guys, then we got to go back and, maybe do another search? Because right now, if there's still stuff there, then we didn't do enough the first time. So there's a gap there. I think that's a concern.
I mean, it's a concern, but actually what's going to happen is they're more likely to work together, despite what anyone might, see in Murder, She Wrote or something like that. What you're going to see is they're actually going to, come together, and they're going to, work out what the evidentiary issues are. And then they're going to present those to the court, and then it's going to be up to the judge. Could that stir up some issues? Could that, put people on point with regards to try and file something, or they're going to try and get evidence suppressed? Yes, absolutely. They will do everything they can to suppress every bit of evidence that they can. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't get in. That doesn't mean that it's not already in a bad position for them. And it certainly doesn't mean that the other side is not going to argue against that. Inevitable discovery is something that, really hurts a lot of defense lawyers, because it just means that just because there was one little, I that was not dotted, or some T not crossed, that they weren't eventually going to come across this evidence anyway.
Well, so I put this through just to see. So basically, if Fisher uncovers new leads, because when you watch this interview later on, he just says he hands it over to the police, and it's like, okay, whatever they're going to do with, they're going to do with it. But I would figure if there's evidence that they found, the police would have a level of urgency connected to that, where it's like, hey, hold on, guys, we got to go back and check the house because right now the homeowner's in there, and if there is still potential evidence there, I got a private investigator there who's going to the news all the time, which could mess with the integrity of the case here. And I got the homeowner here who could be touching evidence. So I got if Fisher uncovers new leads or physical evidence, LAPD may feel compelled to revisit the property. A second search could be justified under a new warrant, but it raises questions. Why wasn't this found the first time? Defense attorneys will argue if a private investigator can find it, how did LAPD miss it? Suggested incompetence or negligence. So legal concerns with second visit is there's an exhaustive search standard. Police are expected to conduct a thorough methodical search the first time. Returning repeatedly can look sloppy, undermining credibility. Chain of custody risk. If Fisher handled the evidence first, it complicates admissibility. A second LAPD visit creates a timeline gap where evidence could have been contaminated. And then the defense strategy would be a defense lawyer would hammer the jury with they had to go back a second time. That means the scene wasn't secured and the investigation was flawed. And then the homeowner dynamic, the homeowner might feel uneasy if the house is revisited, more property disruptions, more liability questions. Fisher's discoveries put the homeowner in a weird spot. They hired him to protect their interests, but now he's basically forcing LAPD back into the house. So that's another concern. I want to mention that. Steve Fisher works for the homeowner, so his loyalty is to the homeowner. So with that said, even if there was any evidence that can now, let's say that we have a first search, and obviously it doesn't look like it was exhausted. Now, as Steve Fisher goes back and he's doing his investigation, how do we know he's not covering up things to protect the homeowner that LAPD didn't miss the first time? So a second visit is not impossible and might even be necessary if new information arises, but it absolutely weakens the prosecutor's appearance of thoroughness, and the defense will weaponize that in court. This is why LAPD generally wants to lock down a property once thoroughly and avoid re-entry unless absolutely unavoidable. All right, hold on, Russ. Let me put this in.
Okay, let me
you got something?
a
Sorry.
Single word.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say licensure. Okay, so licensure is what happens to these private investigators. Their ability to keep, hold, and use their license is always predicated on them being first having to report back, to other law enforcement agencies and to the courts and things like that. So they risk losing their license forever and ever. Amen. If you follow that. If they do something, that is against the court, against the, primary investigating controlling authority, which in this case is going to be the LAPD. And so generally, they're not going to do that. Were they retained and hired by this homeowner? Certainly they were. And certainly, they have a certain amount of loyalty to, him or her that did that. But that person is not holding licensure over their head, if you will.
No, I get it. But so my only thing would be if I was on the other side, I would say, hey, if you got some of this evidence from Fisher, if I was, let's say, on the defense side, how objective is that evidence? You're not like it's the PD. You're working for a third party who could have their own interest.
Yeah, but certainly what it is, though, is it's an investigatory conduit for whatever the LAPD is doing. It is an investigatory conduit for whatever other private investigators might be involved. And it's certainly something that the court can view as what we call something that is probative. And probative just means something that tends to prove things one way or the other. And so it's not something that's, completely under the manipulation of what the private company is doing. It's not something that can be completely manipulated by the person who hired them, the hiring authority, as it were. It's something that falls under the auspices of the court itself.
Dude, I have crime scenes in a prison, in a cell, that we've held longer than this. You know, and that house was a huge house. You know, so it makes me look like they were just it could just look like they were just going through the motions, because I get it. It's $20,000 a month rent. I get it. It's costly, but you know, I don't know how long did it take them to collect what they needed and then release the property back to the owner. I don't think it was that long. Okay, let me get it back on. Hold on. Let me get him.
About this. First off, Steve, how were you hired? How were you retained in this matter?
So originally, when the body was originally found, I had another missing persons case going in LA of a female, and we thought that could be that individual. And so I kind of stayed with the case for a little while until she was identified, and we knew it wasn't. And I had, discovered some other things, such as when the car was towed and the photos from it being towed and whatnot. And, the owner had gotten in touch with me of the house, and I shared some things with him, and it just kind of evolved from there. But one thing, I would say is he is the owner of the house. He wasn't David's landlord. David wasn't even on the lease, and the owner never even knew that David was in the house. It was actually Josh Marshall, his manager, who had leased the house.
But to be clear, David was living there, right?
Yes, he was definitely staying there. It just was not known to the owner.
Right. Okay. And by the way, I understand this is, an active investigation. There might be limited what you can share, but what exactly is he looking for in this? What exactly is this property owner? What kind of answers is he looking for?
So where really kind of evolved from was the search warrant was served, I believe, on the 17th or 18th. And it was a forced entry search warrant, meaning that nobody was home at the time. And they did not leave a copy of the warrant or of the return, the inventory list of the items that they took from the house. And it was really kind of born out of that. I was not officially retained at that time, but I helped him try to obtain that. And we told robbery homicide, hey, listen, no warrant was left behind. David was out on tour. Josh Marshall lives out of state, we found out. So the owner had his representative go to the house immediately after he found out about this. And there was no warrant, no return. So he really just wants to understand what of his property could have been taken and what the status of that is. And then also, this is troublesome when you learn something like this. All of a sudden you're thrown into this, and he feels absolutely horrible for Celeste family. And he's like, if there's anything that involves, in and around my house that could help, then I want to discover that. And I'll tell you that there have been things that we've learned and we've turned right over to LAPD, but we think there's significant, things that could help.
Do you mean that there might be evidence that a crime was committed at that house?
Not so much a crime, no. And I'll just be honest with you. We don't have any evidence that anything happened to Celeste at that house, but there's definitely evidence that we've collected that helps the timeline. We now have a much better understanding of when that Tesla arrived at that final parking spot. I'll tell you, I do have surveillance from different houses in the neighborhood showing the Tesla being moved. So things like that, and I'm not even saying that LAPD didn't have that. I'm sure they did, but we wanted to make sure, and we did some work and on the up-resing the footage to find out who was driving the vehicle. And there are some other items that were found at the house that weren't taken during the search warrant. And search warrants are limited, right?
See, so this is what my thing is, but I guess you would have to, if you were Steve Fisher or you were the homeowner, you would have to justify why you need to investigate those things. Because with that said, if we're still having an ongoing investigation, and I don't know if the stuff was released back because there's no date here. The September 18th was the search, but I think he has to have some partnership with LAPD as well, because if Steve Fisher did not have a partnership with LAPD, then my big thing is he's doing stuff right now that really, if I was an investigator, because the homeowner can hire an investigator. We get it. But it can't conflict or obstruct the investigation from the LAPD. So if he's crossing into other areas, that if I was the homeowner, like going into the Tesla and all this other stuff, you know, what do I need that for? I mean, are these things that really relate to my concerns that I need the investigation for? So, I mean, like, what do you specifically want from this investigation to the homeowner? What do you specifically want to uncover? But when he starts looking more towards who committed the murder, who moved the Tesla, and all this other stuff, he may frame it like the homeowner needs that. But in my opinion, it'd be like, out of curiosity, because this is active, why do you need that so much? Because right now that's what we're working on. So I have a feeling he still has to be connected directly to law enforcement, because if I was doing that investigation and I found out he was looking at all these different things, I would go up to him and say, hey, nicely, hey, Fisher, I get you're doing this, but you got to tell me why you're doing all this stuff. Does this really relate to what the homeowner wants you to accomplish? Because right now you're crossing into what could be definitely a death case, but could be a homicide. You're crossing into my investigation. Does that make sense, Russ? Russ, does that make sense?
I'll say this: it makes sense, but I think that you got to look at it from the point of view of the private detective. This is a living, moving, breathing billboard of advertisement for him, and so to whatever degree that he's involved and putting it out there and showing how on top of things he is and his professional prowess, this is how he gets more business.
I see exactly, we're on the same page. If I was LAPD, I really would be just like, hey, listen, can you at least work with us and tell us exactly what you're investigating so we can make sure that what you're doing doesn't conflict with what we're doing. I can give you an example, if I may. Sometimes we have a concern at the facility that could cover multiple areas that need to be addressed. So you may have an administrative investigation going at the same time as a special investigative division investigation, an EED investigation, and then you have to decide right at that moment what investigation takes priority first. And then we will go ahead and work around that. So I would assume here the LAPD homicide, their investigation takes priority first. But if I start stepping into things that are for what they need, I would LAPD should be like, hold off, stop. Because now you're crossing into messing with our investigation. Like once you start giving me things that's needed for my investigation, either you're working directly with me or you got to stop. You got to stop.
Okay.
Now we're going to have to go back out there. Because another example, Russ, if you determine, let's say you find a piece of evidence that is relevant to what we may believe LAPD needs to move forward with their investigation, that's when LAPD should tell Steve Fisher, thank you for this. Stop everything that you're doing. We're going to have to go back into this house. Let me go ahead and work on getting a warrant. So if you touch anything at this point right now, that could be a concern. But instead, they get to go right back into the house.
Yeah, but I think it kind of breaks down into something a little bit more complex. I think that these people know each other. I think that they know that he's going to say certain things. I think that they know that he's going to put certain things out there. But I think that he has a working relationship with them. And I think that that working relationship encompasses some boundaries that he knows that he shouldn't cross. And I think that they also know at the same time that if there's something that he uncovers that just really does belong in their part of the court, that he's going to do that. They're going to give him the freedom that he needs to put up his billboard of, hey, I'm a professional, private investigator, and I'm good at what I do. And his little bit of blowhard is just going to be seen by them as that, because they work with this guy on a regular basis.
So right, but sadly, the defense is not going to care what type of working relationship they have.
Yeah, but they can call him to the stand and he can say, hey,
No,
yeah, I found.
I think that this, I mean, I could be wrong, Russ. I agree. I think that this actually, I mean, as we have the dialogue now, I think this actually could be a bigger concern because, you know what, to be honest with you, even with him releasing stuff, because he will release stuff, I mean, who's the owner of what he releases? Let's say he found a picture that was, he'll talk about, you know what he'll talk about? He'll talk about looking into David's camera and finding a picture of Celeste. Okay, did you want to do that, I guess, on the pretense that you were looking to see that she was at the house? I get it. But then when you find out that she's not at the house, and that maybe there's something, or why are you now giving that information up? Like there's some stuff they'll talk. Okay, Russ, as he goes through, tell me what stuff you think would be relevant to the homeowner's investigation. And then tell me if you see things that really aren't relevant and now he's crossing the line. Let's see, because he's going to mention something.
I view it from a different perspective, because I also think that that he can be a useful tool as a foil for the LAPD in order to try and drum up some things with regards to the way the public views things. So if they're really, you know, like it's like they're out in a great big field, right? And this field is just full of grass, and there's a bunch of, you know, people out there beating the drum, trying to go through this whole big grassy plain and try and, you know, drive all of this evidence to one spot. The LAPD doesn't really care who gets it because they're going to be able to spin the way they want it to be in the way that they want it. This guy out here is
but the integrity of the collection process. I mean, again, already right now we're discussing.
The thing is, the integrity is something that's going to be talked about in court and dealt with in court.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But why even have to worry about that on the back end? Like this, that's what I'm saying. Like something like this. He's a private investigator. No, but listen, he's being paid by the homeowner. Listen, he's useful. You got LAPD detectives. How much I'm sure they have a lot of the feds. I mean, if you can't find someone in your own, you go to a fed. You don't go to a private investigator. But my thing is this: is that now you know you got a guy making money. Wait, but look, Russ, you got a guy making money, a guy working for the homeowner. Anything he collects could be a motive behind it. That I just think what happens here is watch as he starts talking about some of the things that he's discovering, because we're thirsty for information. So we're happy we're getting it. But at the end of the day, this could probably mess up if there's some serious charges that have to be done. So let's do this. How much of what he's collecting right now is actually for the homeowner, or how much is what he's collecting right now just to go on TV and say that he's got evidence? Become that person who's just going media to media, sharing things because everybody's thirsty to know. So here, let's just see. We'll hear it out, and I'll stop at each thing that he discovers, and we could go through it real quick.
So that they can't just go take everything. It's what the judge, you know, and we don't know how broad that search warrant was because we haven't seen it, and that's what we'd like to see. But there were some things that were not taken into custody of LAPD that we think are significant, and including digital media and some other things that really help nail down timeline and things like that.
You handed that over to LAPD. There's other. We
have the day literally.
See, I got again, Russ. Question with that. Everybody's talking about maybe could LAPD being paid off, which I don't think that's the case. But having said that, you just put on on air that they did not collect a lot of including the digital evidence, which could have connected him to Celeste, especially if he could have been connected to grooming and charges like that. And you just pretty much said LAPD didn't collect a lot of that stuff. I mean, did they go in knowing already that this was just a useless search because we already know what the outcome is? And they didn't put the full effort in? Because, hey, you know, again, just kind of equating to jail knowledge or prison knowledge. Sometimes you get officers that don't think they're going to find nothing and they dog the search. And then you get some officers who know they're going to find something and they go all out and they find it. But digital evidence, stuff like that, you're telling me that the police, you know, he's saying right now the police didn't know that, so they had to give it to them. How do I know that was even in the house? How do I know that wasn't brought in by him?
The way I look at it is or the way that I believe that they view it is that they are all eating at the same trough. And so those things are always going to get found out and fought out in the court setting anyway. And so they're not really overly concerned about it. You see this time after time. The LAPD goes in there and, hey, this happened with evidence. The other thing happened with evidence. And then you've got the defense attorneys that come in there and try and capitalize on it. And they fight it out. And then there's a ruling. And the ruling either goes one way or another. And then once that ruling goes one way or another, then they continue on with the process. And so they don't, in my opinion, they don't get mired down in the little part of the process. They worry about what the overall overarching view of it is as the way it's perceived by.
But Russ, wouldn't this guy? But Russ, listen to me, because this guy right now is literally, in my mind, not outright saying it, but by saying these are the things that LAPD miss. He's also saying, in my mind, that they're a bit incompetent. Maybe I could be wrong, but maybe. And he puts himself in a position where maybe I know the job better. I know what's going. He's not saying it, but would you really want to tell someone on national network like these people here that the police missed all this and that we found it and gave it to him? I mean, that's another motive. I mean, what do you want to showcase that that you did the job better than they did? I mean, I don't know if a working partnership would want that put out there. So if he had a good relationship with LAPD, you think LAPD would want him to go on air and say, hey, these are the things that LAPD missed that we're helping them? To me, I have a feeling like this right here is where this all becomes a cluster, because the main component is the house and the Tesla. And then right now we have all this going on in the middle, which I think taints a lot. But again, let's just see. But that's the first thing. So right now I have himself positioning himself as if he's doing the job better than. I don't think LAPD would want someone going on this national network saying these are the things that LAPD missed that we're now giving to him. I just don't think that's something that you would want shared out there. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Hold on.
So this is all about showboating, though, right? And so, and it's tit for tat, and guys hit back. They showboat. They, they come in and they trash talk the other side. The other side comes in and trash talks the other side, and then it gets fought out in court. And it's just the way that
Russ,
it is.
I know, but you're introducing an element that doesn't have to be in there. See, for me, when I plan my cases ahead, I look at everything at the front end so I don't have to worry about stuff in the back end. This, to me, is something that's going to show up later on that really shouldn't have been involved. It's like something on the front end that should have never happened.
But these guys, this is the way they do business there. This is. I don't
think that's the case. I think that this guy is going on air because originally he was looking at another case. Then he jumped on this one because it became more popular, to some extent. And maybe he's great. Maybe the people get it. But at this point here, I'm, me, law enforcement advocate. I don't know if he's working with law enforcement. In my mind, he could be jeopardizing their case. I mean, if I had someone rolling around an investigation I own.
I agree with all that, but this is the way that they are used to doing business there.
We don't know that, Russ. We don't know that. We don't know that.
Okay.
We don't know that. We don't know that because in the end, if you think it's a good idea for him.
This is my perception. This is my perception of
no, but I'm saying, but do you think it's a good idea for him to be going on a network like this saying these are the things LAPD missed during their search warrant?
I'm not saying that it is a good idea. I'm saying that this is the way that they are used to doing business with each other.
So how do you confirm that the stuff that Steve Fisher gave to the police to look at, how do you confirm that was in the house?
Because that's going to be an argument in a filing.
Right. So why even
have the court?
what I'm saying is, what I would have done is I want to take care of everything on the front. I don't want to have to worry about being surprised on the back end. The moment I realize that there's stuff that we're missing, I would literally tell this guy, Steve, you know what, guys, we're going to do another warrant. Don't go back into that house. I don't want us to be going back and forth at this point, because now not only do I have to worry about the one piece of evidence, but I got to worry about everything else that's going to get introduced later on. Because at this point here,
But they
it's
didn't
just
do that.
But yeah, Russ, he'll talk. He'll say about other things that they're giving in. So everything at this point that does not go from the house directly to the police hands, but has somewhere in the middle, is a continuity of evidence concern. It's a due process violation that I think does hold weight. Because again, why wouldn't the cops go in there and quickly get anything that's digital? That's the main connection between him and Celeste.
That certainly is where their interest should lie. In this case, though, they've got this guy that's countering some of what they're doing, and they're countering back. So I don't know. In the end, what is always going to happen is this is going to go in front of the judge, and the judge is going to make a ruling, and then that ruling is going to be either grounds or not grounds for an appeal later on.
I get it, but none of this would even happen.
I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying it's good, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that it is the way it is.
If I was the judge, this would be easy. If I ruled, that would be open door for an appeal on anything that I find. And I'll guarantee you later on down the line, if this ever goes up the chain like that, later on down the line, these are the technicalities up front that could have been avoided. They did not do what they needed, especially if this guy is saying that.
The judge himself is going to be looking to make it to where it can't be appealed, right? That's what. But
right off the bat, you got something. You got something right now that I would literally say, hey, if there's a case going on here, if I was the prosecutor, I would be like, what did you just give me? Who continued to allow this to happen? Why wasn't I notified that I have an investigator control? How fast did we give up that house? Why is there still stuff there? When you found out there was still stuff there, did you guys rush back there? Have they been told to leave the house? Like, I mean, you just got too much. If that's the main goal,
that ultimately is what we are going to find out in the filings. We will find that out in the filings, 100%.
I would, if I was the defense, guys, me and Russ are not. We're very pro law enforcement. So Russ is very good at presenting the other side. That's why it's good that the dialogue builds like this. But if I was the defense, which I hate saying this, but if I was, I'm going all over that. 100%.
And I agree that they should, but the defense might have other problems that are far more pressing than that, and we don't know what those are yet.
Yeah, that's true. But I still think this is a big thing. But okay, so let's do it. Hold on.
That car, that Tesla? You don't have to tell me, but do you know the identity?
Yeah, as far as it going to the final, that what we believe is the final parking spot where it was towed from, yes.
And that information's been communicated to law enforcement.
So it's been given to law enforcement. They're not going to tell us if they're confirming if that's a person or not. Robbery, homicide, the way they work is we'll take your information. We're not going to speak on it, so I don't know. But listen, it's very clear that that neighborhood is filled with surveillance cameras, and the timelines, once we learn those dates and we can see other things that were happening that were even public on Instagram and whatnot, or going on in those people's lives, it makes a lot of sense.
So Russ, one last thing, and we'll let the video fly. He's getting involved in a lot of the stuff, including who moved the Tesla, all that stuff. Now, get it, if you're being objective, you really shouldn't be looking at the things, hand it over. But with that said, I mean, what's happening here? He's probably hired to do something else, and then he's probably doing things a little bit deeper than he should be, and then bringing it to LAPD. That's what I think. I don't know if the homeowner is really caring so much about all the stuff that he's mentioned here, Instagrams and all this other stuff. But you know what? I got access to the house, so let me do a couple other little things to put my name behind there, and then whatever I find, I'll go ahead. Because my thing is, if I was LAPD, why are you looking at Instagram right now? What are you looking for?
I mean, that's absolutely valid. if we look at it from the same side of the equation, but a little bit back from that, we might be talking about, hey, what is LAPD asking him to do with regards to disclosing some of this stuff and bringing it up and maybe getting it out of the way before an appeal gets a chance to grow any. I don't know. I'm just saying that strange bedfellows sometimes are pretty strange together, and so there's a chance that LAPD might be using him for some of the stuff that they can't get beyond without either having to have a search warrant or something else in their possession, because he's certainly able to do things that they aren't.
Yeah, and I think he got access with the homeowner, works for him as a private detective or private investigator, so he can get more stuff to get his airtime for his business. Okay, hold on one second. Which to me is what could be a problem with the integrity of the investigation.
So let me ask you this. If you see when the car was parked there, have you seen anything to indicate that Celeste's body was transferred into that car after the car was parked there? Or in other words, do you believe that her body was in that car the minute it was parked in the location it was ultimately towed from?
So I'll say I have no evidence of a body being transferred before or after. There's no evidence of that at all. But I will say, when it was moved to that position, it was already like that. So that car had not been used in a very long time. It was super dirty, caked on dirt. I'll tell you, this was in late July. So it's bizarre because we also got media that the car was used a lot. David even spoke about it in Instagram videos. He took it to a detail shop and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the very beginning of the year, that car, something happens, and that car's doesn't show up anymore. It's not used. It seems to disappear. And then that red Tesla learned, which we didn't know until the search warrant was served, that there's a red Tesla in the garage, which I can tell you was leased on February 1st.
Yeah, let me just narrow down here. Do you have the precise date?
So I got one more thing, Russ. Here's my other concern. I mean, how do we know on the sly that Steve Fisher is not also getting paid by David and his team? And because you don't know, then you have to still protect the integrity and assume it could be possible, because it's a big possibility. I mean, he got picked up by the homeowner, and maybe he's keeping that side quiet. We don't know. But with that said, because we don't know, and I'm not saying he is, just hear me out, because we don't know, why risk the integrity of the investigation? You there, Russ? Oh,
well, yeah, they're not. They don't have any choice in the matter unless they could get the judge to sign off on getting some kind of restraining order against him. They're not.
I'm not saying
anything.
that. I'm saying once he turned over a piece of evidence, that means that you haven't found everything. Like if he came in and said, "Hey, by the way, you missed this iPad that David used that was under his bed," that may be enough for the LAPD to say, "You know what? If we missed that, we got to do another round."
Yeah, absolutely. That could be. I'm just saying that. From the perspective of what's going to be litigated in court, it's going to be all of those things, and he's going to be called to court. He's going to be called to testify, barring some other damaging stuff that could come out. He's going to have to do all of those things, as is the LAPD, and everyone is going to be under fire and have to answer those questions, because that's the way the process works.
I gotta play again. Hold on.
Sir, that there's a red Tesla in the garage, which I can tell you was leased on February 1st.
Yeah, let me just narrow down here. Do you have the precise date of when that car, the one with the Tesla, with Celeste body inside, when it was left there? Do you know the specific date of when it was left in Hollywood Hills?
I believe so. I believe it. Late July, very late July.
So one thing that we've heard, and this is something we've talked about, is the LAPD has seized footage from the rental property, multiple security cameras around the property. There are even reports of a smashed ring camera on the ground. Yeah. And according to TMZ, Police seized all the footage from multiple security cameras at the house last month when they executed the search warrant. TMZ described that footage as a, quote, potential gold mine for investigators. And the question becomes, did you see anyone coming into or leaving that property after the Tesla was there? So after the Tesla with Celeste's body inside is there, can you tell us you saw people coming in and out of that property before let's say this, before the search warrant?
No, not from the time that the Tesla was left. So from the time.
Russ, he mentioned before that the homeowner didn't want to look at the cameras, I guess, to protect the integrity and just kind of give it over to the PD. But it seems like he's looking at the camera footage. You're muted, Russ. Russ, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of different motivations for that. And we don't know what those might be. I mean, the homeowner might be
Wait, you there, Russ?
Price of his property. Are you there?
Yeah, you're there. Yeah, you're coming in and out.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm just saying that the homeowner is motivated perhaps by, his property prices, but it could also be that they also see some potential for making some money off of this in some way.
No, but remember, he said they said the homeowner was just handing the video over. So now but I guess Steve Fisher has access to the video and he's able to look. Why are you looking at the video? I think let's say you have a DVR thing that was missed that has this time frame. You can call the PD and say, hey, listen, did you get this DVR? Did you get this camera? Did you get these? I don't got to look through it. Just want to know if you got it. Because even, again, dealing with investigative divisions, they may say we need help getting a block, but we're not looking at the video. We're just giving them the block of whatever they need. So if the homeowner was right, he said at the very beginning, the homeowner hands over the video and then that's it. But this guy here seems to be knowing the video play by play.
Well, yeah, and that's why you get too far off into the weeds. You don't know whether it's the homeowner that's looking at potential angles or the person that they hired that's looking at potential angles.
Who's getting the airtime?
There's a whole lot of competing motivators that get involved in this kind of stuff, and so
right. And when you have when you have those competing motivators, the only people that win from that will be the defense, the other side. Okay, hold on.
Can you tell us you saw people coming in and out of that property before let's say this, before the search warrant?
No, not from the time that the Tesla was left. So from the time the Tesla was left there, he literally immediately started the tour. There was a tour bus that was leased, and I'll tell you that Tesla was moved and literally a bus departed for tour.
Okay. You talked about things that might have been taken from the house, things that you handed over to LAPD. Is there anything you can share with us about what that information may be?
One thing that you just brought up, and I guess which TMZ reported on, the security system. The house has got a very sophisticated security system, not just with cameras, but with sensors and all types of things. It all records to a DVR. And for privacy reasons, the owner, when he leased the house, said, this is the system that's in the house and you can use whatever functions you want on it. That's not something that then the owner could access. So we don't know if the cameras were enabled or not enabled, but if they were, it wouldn't just be cameras. It would be, we'd know anytime anybody came and went from the house, anytime anybody opened a window, everything, if they kept it like it was. But we don't know. LAPD came in and took that whole DVR. They took the entire system, which you would expect. And I've talked to the security company that installed the system, and they've told me, how it was set up. We think it was probably running because there's limited alerts that the security guy can see, which is stuff like if there's a major failure. And there was a low power failure warning that triggered right when they were executing the search warrant. And I think that's when they unplugged the system. So there's reason to believe that the system was running. Whether the cameras were covered or not, I don't know. I can tell you that some of the smoke sensors in the house were covered, and that's probably because maybe I don't know what they were doing in the house. So the cameras might have been covered as well.
During the course of your investigation so far, have you learned more information about Celeste and David perhaps
Russ,
their
did you catch
connection,
that?
anything we should be thinking about that
He almost slipped. He almost slipped. He said that he believed the smoke, whatever was covered, and then he almost said what he probably knows, and then quickly pulled back and said, I don't know. He almost slipped. I would have explored that a little more if I was to watch. He almost slips. So I'm telling you, there was an overdose here, because watch this, dude. He almost slipped.
I believe that the system was running. Whether the cameras were covered or not, I don't know. I can tell you that some of the smoke sensors in the house were covered, and that's probably because maybe they were, I don't know what they were doing in the house. So the camera.
You see that? Russ, you're muted. Did you see that?
Yeah, I see it. I wonder what their, whether or not it probably was an overdose.
I think it
but
was.
We don't know what might have also been going along with regards to that overdose. So it's, it's probably just one of those things that's going to get shown in court. What's that?
He slipped. He slipped. He slipped. I think he slipped. I'll do it again. I think he slipped.
The system was running. Whether the cameras were covered or not, I don't know. I can tell you that some of the smoke sensors in the house were covered, and that's probably because maybe they were, I don't know what they were doing in the house. So the cameras might have been covered as well.
During the course of your investigation so far, have you learned more information about Celeste and David?
And he did say the smoke areas were covered.
Perhaps their connection, anything we should be thinking about that hasn't been publicly reported? Is your investigation also into them as well?
Sure. Yeah. And one of the reasons that we kind of come public with what I'm doing.
Yeah, Russ, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Reported.
All right, there you go. Go ahead, Russ.
So, I mean, we can certainly, surmise, based on that, whether or not they were, chasing the dragon or not. If people are unfamiliar with that term, it usually means, opiates that are being smoked off of tinfoil. And specifically, whether or not it might have been, a more potent form of opiates, like fentanyl or carfentanil or that type of thing. So the reason that people would, cover up the smoke detectors in a case like that would to have them to keep from going off while they're in the actual act of, in imbibing and inhaling these things. And so that's the first time I've seen where they've not directly but indirectly mentioned the fact that there might be controlled substances involved. And so my mind goes right there because I deal with addicts all the time. I know what they do. I know how they do it. And that is potentially an indicator in this case.
Yes, I agree. And I think, I mean, again, we talked about this a while ago, but I think that he knew this already. And that's why he put it out where we just put it as motives, but we put down that most likely we made our discernment from the panic. Again, I work in the prison system. We have people that, make foolish choices. And then there's a panic to cover it up. They're not thinking, it's a panic. So the only thing I thought of at that point where before all this was spelled out was that maybe there was an overdose, there's a minor, and they panicked because they didn't want to get exposed. And if that was the case, anybody would have been had motive, not just David, but the lifestyle that that David provides. So David being caught with a minor would have ruined his career, and then unfortunately could have ruined the lives of the many other people that were surrounded by him, that surrounded him. Okay, hold on.
Is your investigation also into them as well?
Sure. Yeah. And one of the reasons that we kind of come public with what I'm doing is because, I have a little bit different method of working than a lot of private investigators and then what people think is the proper way of doing it. I believe in this digital age, and when, especially the younger generation, when they're on places like Discord and you don't even know their real identities, I put myself out there and those people do come to me, and a tremendous amount of people have come to me, and I've learned a lot. Now, listen, a lot of it's circumstantial, right? But there are people that are directly in his orbit, and there are people that have photos and videos, and we've gotten a lot of photos and videos from inside the home itself. So we can put people at certain dates and times at the house, and there's a lot of them. It's in the thousands.
Do you know if Celeste was ever at that property?
So, what we recovered, we don't have any of her at that property. We have pictures of her and that were taken by David, we assume, because it's not on a camera phone, but these photos are on a regular camera at different locations. And
now, real quick, the body was in the Tesla, but maybe there were no pictures of her, or maybe there was no evidence she's at the property right yet, or there were no pictures. But could it be safe to say that, just possibly that there may have been, but he works for the owner? Now, I'm not saying he would do something foolish, but could that be something that could get tested?
I think that there's a lot of moving parts here. They, even though they did not release a cause of death, with regards to the autopsy, they did say that she suffered from at least 3 different heart conditions. So
I didn't hear
throw
that.
that out there into the mix.
Where'd you hear that from? I never heard that.
It was released about a week ago.
Russ, that's not Russ. I don't think that's. I think that's not.
Hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
I've never heard. I haven't heard that. I never heard that. And guys, also remember Steve Fisher said he spoke to me. I believe he did, and said that this wasn't a party house. And maybe I don't know how long
ABC
yeah, Russ, I never
7. Okay, ABC 7 reports. Celeste Rivas Hernandez cause of death remains listed as deferred. That means they've not made a determination, just as it has been for weeks, as the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner continues to try and determine the cause of death. Gosh, where did that go? I just had it a second ago.
Russ, because they wouldn't even probably be able to make that determination because her body was so badly
They didn't make a determination. They stated, hold on. I'm gonna find it here.
I'm sure they would have. I could be wrong, but I want to mention something.
Okay.
So he never
the
said.
death certificate says she's not been pregnant in the last year. It also says
there's no heart condition on there, Russ. I haven't.
Hold on. I let's see. Tries to determine.
I know this girl. I've. But let me mention something real quick. Hold on, for I lose this train of thought.
I'm saying I see it. It says it right here, but when I open it, it doesn't say it. I'll take a picture.
Russ, I'm telling you, Russ, that was never. Then it's just a mistake. It's not, but that was never released. That whatever that was wouldn't be an official source because that was never. I followed this case. I would have seen that.
I know. I'm saying that it says it on the ABC 7.
I've never seen it say it on that, and if they did, I don't know where they would have gotten that.
I'll take a picture of it. Hold on, I'll show it to you right here.
Yeah, but did they say her heart?
Yes.
I don't see that, Russ. But wait, let me get this thought out. Russ, I have to get a thought out here. He said that when he was doing his rounds and looking at the cameras a while back, he said it wasn't a party house. I don't know if he was working for the owner at that time. We don't know. But remember, they said it was a party house. They were partying there at least once. So I don't know when he started working for the owner because he never really said who told him it wasn't a party house. But I remember that video where he said it wasn't a party house. And then later on, we found out that it was a party house. That's unique. And then again, I'm not saying I'm not saying that, but you're working for the homeowner. There would be good reason for the homeowner not to want this minor on the property. So when you tell me that there's nothing that says the minor's been on the property, what's to make me think? And I'm not saying he's doesn't have integrity. Just hear me out. I'm just playing devil's advocate. What makes me think that you would want to release that if it was, especially if now you're giving the evidence over to the PD? How do we know that wasn't tampered with? Wait, Russ, while you find that, Russ, let's continue watching the video. Hold on.
Pictures of her and that were taken by David, we assume, because it's not on a camera phone, but these photos are on a regular camera at different locations. And it really makes me think that It's likely she had another place she was staying. I can tell you that there was a lot of time spent towards downtown LA. And I'll say the last photo that we have of Celeste is January 2nd, 2025.
Okay, now that's significant because we were wondering when, she was last seen alive. There was that surveillance footage of her seemingly running away from her neighborhood.
And that was September of 24, I believe. So,
yeah.
So just again, out of curiosity, I don't know if they were renting the apartment at that time. Actually, let me find out when they rented the apartment. Hold on one second, or the house, because then my next thing here would be this. Wait, when did Josh Marshall rent? I think it was in rent. Hold on, rent the house on Hollywood Hills. I think it's March, but don't quote me. But let me just see, because some of the stuff I don't know if that's been released. Let me just see. Okay, so they said the lease was signed in February of 2024. The homeowner claims that Josh Marshall, on behalf of David, moved out, broke the lease shortly around. Okay, so let's say it's around February. We don't know when, but let's just say it's around February. If he's working for the homeowner, why is he looking for stuff in January? Just a question.
He's looking for the pre-existing relationship.
Yeah, but he's working for the homeowner. And all that stuff should be given to the legal authority to be looking for that. That's their job, not someone that's looking for.
I agree, but I'm just saying that that's obviously what he's looking at.
Yeah, Russ, the heart condition is not credible.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you right now.
Yeah, but hold on.
We didn't have anything. We were like, where was this girl in 2025? But we do have a photo of her on July 2nd, early in the morning, July 2nd, 2025.
Has anyone, and just to be clear, you don't know more information about when she died, right?
No, okay. I don't have any information of how she died, when exactly she died. Investigations are always moving, and right now I tend to believe it happened a long time ago. And I think January, February, things change. I mean, you can see it in the photos and everything. And I also think when I first started looking at this case, I'm very much an Occam's razor type of person where I think things are a lot easier than people try to make them sometimes, especially online, into these big things. And I thought this was going to be a tragic overdose, which it very well still could be. And they made a bad decision because they didn't want to expose a potential relationship and put her in this Tesla. And then maybe he thought he could get somebody to get rid of that car. And they were just like, no, I'm not doing it. And just got left there. But I will say this, there are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her. And it's scary, sadistic stuff. And that's why we're trying to learn more.
So, Russ, then if that's the case, why ain't LAPD back at that house? Russ?
I agree. They should be, unless, who knows?
And he also said, by the way, I think he confirmed the drug overdose again. I want to show you something. I think he confirmed the drug overdose.
Easier than people try to make them sometimes, especially online, into these big things. And I thought this was going to be a tragic overdose, which it very well still could be. And
I think he tried to pull back by not releasing it, by saying, I think it could be, but then he still wants to confirm it by saying, but I think it is. Okay, you have it here?
Yeah.
What is that, Russ?
That's a snippet. That's a snippet that I did on my Google search, where it shows that at one time, ABC, I think it was ABC, that ABC had that up, but then when I click on it, it changes it. So they had either retracted that or not.
Yeah, they definitely retracted that, Russ, because that.
But I definitely read that at the time. Definitely.
I didn't say you didn't read it, Russ. I know you're honest. I didn't say. I just said it's not credible.
Well, I'm letting these people know that I have a mind like a rusty steel.
All right, let's finish up this last part of the video. Yeah, Russ. By the way, obviously your credibility is 100%. I wasn't that. I was saying whoever said that, it wasn't credible. Okay, hold on.
made a bad decision because they didn't want to expose a potential relationship and put her in this Tesla. And then maybe he thought he could get somebody to get rid of that car. And they were just like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And just got left there. But I will say this, there are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her. And it's scary, sadistic stuff. And
you want to hear one more thing, Russ? When one of the motives we put in our very first show, one of the motives we put in the show that we did on the 24th, whatever it was, we put as a last resort, a motive could have been something that was sadistic or like something cult-like. We put that in there. Okay, hold on.
That's why we're trying to learn more about that. I wish I could say more, but for obvious reasons I can't. But it doesn't have to do with how she died, but maybe how they were planning on ultimately getting rid of her, and how maybe that Tesla was just a holding spot at the time, and things just, their timing was just off as far as getting this done. But there's a few things that were just like, will blow your mind.
Has anyone from David's team, management, legal, anybody reached out to you or your client?
I know that my client's been in touch with his manager, but only for the purpose of the lease, because they did ask to terminate the lease. And I believe the other.
All right. So again, I have another concern. He quickly covers it up. Your client's been talking to Josh Marshall, the manager. And then he quickly says only for the lease. But your client's been talking to Josh Marshall, and you guys have access to the house. So you may say it's only about the lease, which he quickly said that. I think he realized that could be a door because he quickly said that. Watch.
My client's been in touch with his manager, but only for the purpose of the lease, because they did.
How do we know that? How do we know that, Russ?
I mean, just only through his reporting, as far as I know.
I'm just saying. So as a community, your client is talking to Marshall, but you're also working for your client. How do we know? I'm just saying, it's just the house should still be closed off a bit. It's too much in my mind. Even if I'm not questioning anybody's integrity, but if something goes sideways, if you don't get the closure or whatever it is, this is going to be some of the reasons why, because they're not going to trust in the system because of all this in the middle shit. Hold on.
Asked to terminate the lease, and I believe the other manager that technically was the owner of the red Tesla, I think, was in touch with him because they needed access to the house to get that vehicle and stuff out. Because that's another thing that they could be key in this, is that there's only one key to that house, and who had that, and who had access to it, and who was in it. Because we also have evidence.
Sorry, so you're still continuing to give evidence over to the police, but you're still allowing other people to have access to the house that are on David's team. That's a problem, ain't it?
Yep.
Right, hold on.
Well, David was on tour at the time between the test.
What is it, Russ?
But it depends on what he's interjecting there. These might be things that he's already talked about with the LAPD. I'm just saying,
Russ,
I don't know. I'm
not
sure what his.
But Russ, if whatever evidence they collect after everything was given back to the homeowner, I'm telling you, is going to be a concern. Because if he's still giving evidence now, we don't know when the managers were back there. We don't know if they've ever been back there, or if people from David's crew's ever been back there. And then you're giving them evidence. How do we know that the digital evidence you provided wasn't given to you to give over? Because maybe it was already handled and touched by their professionals. You don't know. He just literally said that they still had access to the house, and then you're still handing over evidence. By the way, they missed this digital stuff. What do you mean they missed it? They didn't catch it their first time? So how do we know it wasn't brought there? And how do we know that's not meant to shift the narrative because you had the team there? I mean, you don't know, but it's something that could be a concern that may wind up causing a whole other issue. Now we need to investigate who was at that house after this time frame.
Yeah, well, we will find out. We will find out in the filings. There may be a counterfiling by the LA DA's office with regards to this.
They
Who
could be
knows?
getting digital.
They may pull this guy's short hairs and say, "Hey, none of that existed," but we're going to see.
I'm just saying they could be getting digital devices right now that are doctored. I mean, if I was the prosecutor, I'd be like, hey, who's been on my crime scene here? How do I know that the stuff you're giving me is actually coming from there because it was there, or has it been placed there for us to pick up to change the narrative? Okay, hold on.
That house, and who had that, and who had access to it, and who was in it, because we also have evidence that while David was on tour at the time between the Tesla being found and the search warrant being served, David was on tour, but somebody was in that house. And there was actually a report made, not with police, but that homeowner association has a robust private security company, and we've gotten videos from them and reports. And so who had that key is probably the same person that, had access to the Tesla.
Do you know who that person is? And do you believe that is the person that moved the Tesla?
So I definitely know who moved that Tesla on that late July before they went on tour. I can't say who the person, and I don't mean I can't say I don't know who exactly was in that house, because it's just a report, but there's video, but you can't make a person out. But somebody was in the house, and being that there's only one key, it's like, okay, who had access at that time? So is it the same person that moved the Tesla? Was another last part of the plan about to go in motion as far as getting rid of her body? I don't know.
Now, we heard this week from LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman, and he actually addressed this case directly when a TMZ reporter caught up with him outside the DA's office. And regarding the status of the case, he said, quote, "It is currently under investigation. We don't discuss suspects or the points in a continuing investigation. When and if that case is presented to the DA's office and we make a decision on it, I'll make sure you're one of the first to know. A case has not been presented to our office for filing consideration." And just to underline that, a spokesperson for the DA's office confirmed to Complex that, no case has been presented for filing consideration. The LAPD also told the outlet that the county medical examiner still hasn't determined a cause or manner of death, saying, quote, "It remains unclear whether there is any criminal culpability beyond the concealment of her body." Now, Steve, you just told us a lot of information here. Are you surprised that we don't have a confirmed suspect from law enforcement or a person of interest or even an arrest at this point? Or can you say, from what you're seeing, that makes sense, but Jesse, maybe being on the lookout for something soon?
Yeah, I would say, Jesse, that makes sense, but maybe be on the lookout for something soon. I've seen this in a lot of cases. It tells me, listen, I don't have any inside information on this. I'm just saying, from my opinion, that this means that during the examination, the autopsy examination, there was nothing very obvious, such as a crushed skull, any bullet holes, anything like that. So they're waiting on toxicology to come back to make that final determination. Now, is the medical examiner in contact with the detectives in between this time? Are they? Absolutely. Do they have a preliminary determination? I'm sure they do. I think the DA's office is working side by side with the detectives and telling them, this is what we need for these charges. This is what we would need for these charges. Can you get it or not get it? Listen, a crime 100% happened here. At minimum, it's the concealment of a body, right? So we know somebody did that. Hopefully it's not, a mutilation. Hopefully those initial reports were wrong about her being dismembered. But one thing I have to say, even though I talked about how we found some things that could have meant they had a really twisted plan in place to get rid of her, it never went in motion. So you can't charge somebody for a crime that they may have thought about doing. So, we may never know more about that.
So, Steve, before I let you go, do you have any indication about where David is right now?
I don't. I have no idea. And it's kind of bizarre because his group has stayed so silent. What's left of his group, I guess. And I'm not even sure the conversations that the owner did have with his management in breaking that lease. I'm not even 100% sure his management knows at this time where he's at. I think his attorney might be the only one, and his parents.
Steve Fisher, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for providing a little bit more insight into what's going on right now.
Thanks for having me on.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always,
All right. Hold on, Russ. Let me close the
All right. Am I here all by myself?
Sorry, I got disconnected. Hey, I got one more 4 minutes. We'll just let this play through. It's from News Nation. Ashley Banfield just posted kind of like a summary of what we just were watching. But I'd like to see her perspective. Love to get your perspective on this too. Let me go ahead and select the video.
Somebody put a dead or soon-to-be dead teenage runaway in the trunk of her boyfriend's Tesla and ditched that Tesla on an upscale street in the Hollywood Hills. And weeks later, that Tesla with the rotting corpse inside was ticketed and towed away. That somebody may or may not have had a hand in the runaway's death, but my money is on yes. And more than a month after this mystery first hit the headlines, the discovery of the decomposing body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. The name of that somebody is as unknown to us officially as ever, but apparently not to everybody. The identity of the person who abandoned that Tesla, a filthy luxury car owned by the singer David, with David's 14-year-old girlfriend dead inside, is now known to investigators. And tonight, we're learning that both the car and driver were captured on surveillance video the last time that car was apparently driven by anyone. Even better, we've learned the driver was visible enough in that footage to be identified later on.
And by the way, this hasn't been confirmed by police. That's the key. It's coming from the investigator, so it's still not law enforcement confirmed.
LA police are not talking about this or anything else in the Celeste death investigation. The bombshell video was unearthed by the private investigator hired by the owner of the house where David lived up until a couple of weeks after Celeste was found dead in his car. And that's not the only piece of evidence that the PI unearthed. That investigator's name is Steve Fisher, and he joins me now live. Steve, welcome back to the program. How certain are you that...
Hey, Russ, though, you see my concern here, though? Because what you said, Russ, I mean, to me, if I had an investigation, wouldn't you think by now that this person is truly getting to a point where he's obstructing it?
Well, yeah, it certainly could be. The other thing that, that really jumps out at me, though, is what have they done with all of the video footage from the Tesla itself? Teslas have
that's
cameras everywhere.
Yeah, we know they have it. They had the, what's
And
it called? The center system or something, whatever it is. The, what's the name of the system?
So
cameras running.
So there should be some evidence there. I don't know why they haven't come out with it yet, unless they're having some type of
Well, I think they're holding on to it because it's still like the guy said, it's still an ongoing investigation. But now you got a guy here that really, in my mind, shouldn't have even looked at the video. As an investigator, he knows better, and he's stepping on LAPD's investigation. And look, as you said, Russ, you said it before, Russ, he's getting the airtime promoting his business.
Yeah, he is. And you got to remember that the stuff that he came across was stuff that they left behind and cleared for him to come across, though. So
and he's not, I mean, to be honest, he's not saying stuff that's I mean, right now he's saying he knows something, but I mean, does he? I mean, we don't know. He's not giving out the name or nothing, but still, if I was LAPD, I would say, you know what? This guy seems to know a lot more, and I'm going to start bringing him in because right now he's obstructing. We're remaining quiet, and he's going on the news outlets here. Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
because then what winds up happening.
Another thing that's really happening here is the fact that they keep putting that word deferred out there with regards to what's going to happen to the autopsy. There's toxicology. There's something there that's troubling, and there's something there that's not confirming with something else that's going on. And I wonder if it has to do with whatever the video is there. They should have by now made an arrest. I think if David was the clear party, there might be some ambiguity as to who actually did this. So
well, I looked up this too. Hold on. If there were, hold on. Is the home? So if you're hiring, if the homeowner's hiring the PI, even though he's not automatically liable, if there's illegal activities that goes on his home, he's not automatically liable. Homeowner, landlord is not automatically responsible for the crimes of tenants. But if the owner knew or should have reasonably known that illegal activity was happening and did nothing, they could be pulled into liability. So again, no knowledge. If the owner had no idea or no reasonable way to know, liability usually doesn't attach. Example, renting through a manager who vouches for tenants and nothing suspicious was visible. You get cooperation. If the homeowner cooperates fully with LAPD, it shows they're complicit. And then the lease clauses. Most leases include illegal activity clauses that allow immediate termination, having this on paper. But if LAPD finds illegal activity at the Hollywood Hills rental, the first question is, did the homeowner know or should they have known? If not, liability is unlikely, but the homeowner may still face lawsuits or reputation damage. This explains why the homeowner brought in Steve Fisher. Now, it explains it because to protect themselves from showing they had no knowledge and acting responsibility. It also showcases that they got the minor in the house, and maybe he did know, and he wants to basically make sure that they can kind of disconnect. But again, we have an investigation going on. Why did we are we also checking, should the homeowner be investigated for possible illegal activity in his home and what he allows? Because he was quick to say that wasn't a party house. Remember that, guys? He said that. Watch that video we did with Mansfield. And I don't know if he was working for the manager at that time, but he could have been. We don't know. But later on, they said there were parties there. So maybe when you find out that your house is a party house, maybe a landlord or owner is going to want to know what's going on with those parties. Let's take a look at this. I mean, do I allow parties? Maybe I got to be careful what's in that house. But he was quick to say it wasn't a party house. Maybe that wasn't. Maybe he could have been misinformed. We don't know. Or maybe he was protecting his client. All right, hold on. I can actually find that too. Let me see if I can find that.
At this video of the car driving away from David's mansion is the last time it drove and ended up at the spot where it was abandoned, likely with that body inside.
I'm certain. Listen, I can't say 100% because there's not a camera trained on that Tesla once it's parked. Continuously that I've seen. I mean, there likely is a camera, but I've seen the car driven to that spot, and with the dates, with the date that it was, and they left town right after that. I'm certain that is the last time the car was driven. It was put there with her, in the front trunk.
And there's one weird detail about what you could, well, there's a lot of weird details, and I'm going to get to what you saw through the driver's side window in a second, but there was an air freshener that was found in the car at this point that we see on our screen where it was abandoned. Was that air freshener also hanging from the rear view mirror when it drove off from David's house?
It wasn't, but the window was half to 3/4 of the way down, which is odd because it was a very short drive. And also at that on that day, this is the very end of July 29th, it was like 78 degrees at that time in the morning, or 77 degrees. And if it was on the street where the house is, so it's shaded by the house. So, if you're going, I don't know why the window would be rolled down unless there's something, offensive there. And then all of a sudden, one of the first things I picked up on when the news first broke about her being found in there, where they were towing the car away from the impound lot to LAPD, was why on a $104,000 car is there a Christmas tree air freshener hanging from the from the mirror? It seemed kind of odd to me, but I guess maybe they thought that would help, mask it for when they had to move the car again.
If there was that smell at that time, because again, we have no idea when Celeste started decomposing in that trunk. We don't know if she'd been decomposing in the trunk for a long time before it ended up being the car ended up being abandoned. But talk to me about the date of this video, July 29th, and talk to me about what you saw. What did you see in terms of the identity of the person driving through that open window?
Hold on to that thought, Russ. Yeah, hold on to that thought. I want to show you something. Now, I don't know if he was working for the guy at the time, but remember, liability, right? Party house would be something that if you hear your apartment's a party house, you got to follow up on that, right? So, but watch this. Let me enlarge myself. This is him showing everybody the neighborhood.
Security cameras, and I think that there's a lot more cameras than just the two you see here. And also the houses around us. I mean, we're looking at a camera right here on my left. So there's probably a lot that was captured. It's a wealthy area. These people value their privacy, and it's a beautiful home. It's also, there's been these rumors about it being a real party house and everything, but people I've talked to around here said it was very they were very courteous, and it was quiet, and it was not this party house that it was rumored to be. So
that sounds like, to me, that sounds like an afterthought, by the way. Like he's talking about the cameras, and you figure, oh, this is a good time to plug that in. Because if you look at it, it looks like it's just like an afterthought, like he's plugging it in just to kind of get it out there. Because watch.
There's been these rumors about it being a real party house.
I mean, it just comes out of nowhere.
Privacy. And it's a beautiful home. It's also, there's been these rumors about it being a real party house and everything, but people I've talked to around here said it was very they were very courteous, and it was quiet, and it was not this party house that it was rumored to be. So
yeah, but I wonder what the definition of a party house is to him. But it's very unique because later on, they do admit that there were parties there, or at least one. Okay, hold on. Sorry about that. I wanted to showcase that. Okay, hold on. Unique though, right, Russ? Unique, because he could have been working for him at the time. Okay, here.
So it's very clearly that Tesla one, because the Tesla has that tape on the rear spoiler for whatever reason. I don't know why it's there. And also, it was just like it is in that picture. It was that dirty, except you could tell that they had run the windshield wiper like once to clear the dirt away so they could see. And it comes very close to the camera, although there is some motion blur, but you can see the person, and you can see what they're wearing, something pretty distinctive. And there's photos that I have from 12 hours earlier, a person at the house wearing the same thing.
And I know that the viewers right now are screaming at the TV set saying, Ashley, ask him who it was.
I mean, I honestly wish I could tell you. I don't want to, I don't want to interfere with LAPD on that. And
look at that.
That's coming, because we know a crime was committed 100%.
Look at the wording on that, Russ. And by the way, I when I did my short, I put objective, but as you further watches, I learn every time. But look at that. He doesn't want to interfere with LAPD on that. On that. That was a spontaneous admission. Watch this, Russ.
And I know that the viewers right now are screaming at the TV set saying, Ashley, ask him who it was.
I mean, I honestly wish I could tell you. I don't want to, I don't want to interfere with LAPD on that. And I think that's coming.
My next question on that, Russ, is what we would do is, okay, then what are you willing to interfere with LAPD on? Why'd you specifically say on that? You know what I mean, Russ?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's finish up.
Because we know a crime was committed 100%. Somebody concealed her body.
Thank you for watching.
All right, we did it, Russ. That was a little bit longer than I thought, but that was a good, man. We opened up a lot because I didn't go in expecting to do all this. What's your thoughts? Anything you'd like to say in closing, Russ?
I don't know. I think that they have a real problem with the autopsy. If they were really all, gung ho to get this done and to get an arrest made, and they haven't done it yet, and it just keeps dragging on, there's a significant problem with the autopsy, and that's the only way that I can see it at this point.
Yeah, they need the toxicology, because right now, as I said, they gave the investigation over. As I said, when he said that, that's not really creating anything new. Once they gave, the body over to the family, not the investigation, the body over to the family, At that point, if there was something that was trauma that could pull out, they couldn't. So now it's more about what's in the toxicology. So as always, guys, the show is okay, Russ.
I was going to say, I think what you're going to see is the difference is going to be that they're having a hard time, actually pinpointing the cause of death. If they can't pinpoint a cause of death, they really can't rule it a homicide. So that's where it appears to be going to me.
Yep, and it looks like there's a lot of things in the middle here that even if they were to try something, I don't know if it would hold. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify every time I post a video. Stay safe.